It was just after 9 a.m. on a Tuesday when Leonard Price walked into the brick and glass building of Mercury State Bank, briefcase in hand, suit pressed sharp enough to slice silence. He wasn't loud. He wasn't flustered. He was precise, polished, controlled. And still, the moment he walked through those double doors, two things happened. A young teller behind the counter stiffened and whispered something to her coworker. A manager from across the lobby narrowed his eyes, like Leonard had tracked in something that didn't belong. And all Leonard had done was walk in. The bank lobby smelled of cologne, corporate carpet, and freshly brewed coffee. Classical music played quietly overhead. Everything about the place said, "We serve important people." Leonard approached the counter calmly. "Good morning. I'd like to make a withdrawal." The teller, early 20s, name tag said Chloe, blinked at him. "Of course, sir. Do you have an account with us?" Leonard placed his driver's license, platinum bank card, and a typed authorization letter on the counter. "Yes, business account, Price Innovations, Inc." Chloe glanced at the papers, and then hesitated. Let me just call my manager." Enter. Mr. Thomas Reagan, branch operations manager, mid-40s, hair slicked back, tie a little too tight. He walked over, already frowning. "Yes, what seems to be the issue?" Chloe gestured toward the documents. "He wants to withdraw $35,000 from the corporate account." Reagan picked up the bank card and the letter, then looked Leonard up and down. "And you're the CFO?" "CEO," Leonard replied. Calm. Controlled. Reagan chuckled softly, like someone had just offered him Monopoly money. "I'm sorry, sir, but we'll need to verify this with the account holder." Leonard raised an eyebrow. "I am the account holder." "Yes, but you understand, large withdrawals like this, we need confirmation. Fraud, you know. Identity theft. You could be anyone." Leonard stared at him for a beat, then reached into his briefcase, pulled out a second ID. Corporate license, bank founding papers, state seal, his signature at the bottom of every line. "I signed the charter. I helped build the back-end system that runs your accounts." Reagan glanced at the papers, then handed them back, still smiling, but now tighter. "Yes, well, anyone can print documents. I'm going to have to deny this transaction until we confirm with corporate." Leonard leaned in. His voice didn't rise. It got quieter. "And what do you think corporate will say when I tell them you refused a transaction to the man who owns this building?" Reagan scoffed. "Sir, we don't tolerate threats." "It's not a threat," Leonard replied. "It's a 10-minute wait." Reagan didn't get it. Not yet. But he would, because what he didn't know was that the man in front of him had just finished a meeting 4 blocks away with the regional board, that Leonard had signed off on the renewal lease of this branch just yesterday, and that when the board asked if there were any concerns with staff, Leonard had said no, but he was about to change his mind. 10 minutes later, Leonard stepped into a conference room on the building's top floor. He didn't have to ask for the Wi-Fi, didn't need a visitor badge. He had the master key. He made one phone call, and less than 10 minutes after that, Mr. Reagan was asked to step into a meeting of his own. And what happened next wasn't just justice. It was a reversal no one in that bank would forget. Long before he wore $1,000 suits and signed corporate leases, Leonard Price stood behind a grease-splattered stove in his grandmother's kitchen in rural Georgia. He was 13. His hands were calloused from hot pans. His shoes had holes. And every day after school, he made eggs and bacon for his grandma and her church friends. Women who had seen too much, buried too many, and still smiled with all their teeth. They were the first to tell Leonard he was different. "You don't talk much," one said, "but Lord, you're always watching." And he was. He watched how people moved, how money moved, how his cousin got arrested for something a white boy got a warning for. He learned early. Power didn't look like him, and respect wasn't handed out. It was withheld. At 17, Leonard taught himself to code on a beat-up library computer. They only gave him 20 minutes per session, so he copied tutorials onto paper and studied them at home by flashlight. At 19, he sold his first software tool for $2,500. A white tech investor tried to lowball him. Leonard walked. 3 months later, the same man came back and paid him 5 times more. By 24, Leonard launched Price Innovations, a company that built logistics tech for small retailers. He didn't wear hoodies. He wore suits. He didn't pitch in cafes. He built his own office. And when banks laughed at his loan applications, he built his own capital stack, bootstrapped, no debt, every dollar earned, every investor vetted. By 30, the company was generating $40 million a year. He held 4 patents, owned 3 buildings, and had just funded an engineering lab at a top HBCU with his name on the front. But the truth, none of that changed the way people looked at him. In banks, they asked if he was lost. In elevators, they asked what floor he was delivering to. In boardrooms, they stared like he was the intern, not the owner. He never forgot. That's why when Reagan looked at him and saw a threat instead of a client, Leonard didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice. He let the system work. His system. Mr. Reagan walked into the conference room confused. 2 corporate men were already seated. Eli, the assistant manager, stood quietly to the side. And at the head of the table sat Leonard, jacket off, sleeves rolled, expression calm. "Please," Leonard said, gesturing. "Have a seat." Reagan sat, glancing around the room. "What's this about?" One of the corporate reps slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos, documents, time-stamped statements, all from that morning. And right at the top, Leonard's name. Reagan blinked. I don't understand." Leonard leaned in, calm, quiet. "I'm not just a client, Mr. Reagan. I'm not just an account holder. I own this building. And until 30 minutes ago, I was part of the board that decides whether this branch keeps its lease." Reagan's face drained of color. This is a misunderstanding. I was just doing protocol." "No," Leonard said. You assumed I didn't belong, that my skin, my tone, my presence didn't fit your idea of wealth. I didn't mean you didn't have to. That's the problem." He tapped the folder. "You followed the policy, but ignored the principle." The room stayed quiet. Eli finally spoke. "I watched it happen. You didn't doubt the documents. You doubted him." Reagan looked down. Leonard stood. "You're relieved of your position. Effective immediately. HR will handle your exit." Reagan stood up in shock. You can't do this." Leonard stared. "I already did." As Reagan exited the room, dazed, a young intern passed by. She was black, 20 maybe. She'd seen what happened. She smiled, not at Reagan, but at what had just changed. Later that day, Leonard gathered the entire staff in the break room. He stood beside Eli and said, "This branch is changing. New leadership, new training, and a new standard. That no customer, no matter how they look, will ever be made to feel like they don't belong here." Silence. Then a single clap. Then another. Soon, the entire room was standing with him. As Leonard walked out, one of the tellers stopped him. "Mr. Price, my son's only 4, but I hope he grows up in a world where there are men like you." Leonard smiled. "No," he said. "He'll grow up in a world better than me because of what we choose to change right now. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't shout. It's to stand still. Let them underestimate you. Let them assume. Let them look past you. And then, when the moment comes, show them who owns the building." Leonard didn't fire that man because he was angry. He did it because leadership matters, because how we treat people when no one's looking defines everything. So next time someone says, "You don't belong here," just smile, because you might be the one holding the keys. Thank you for watching this video. Like and subscribe to get more.